Now, it wouldn't be a summit if we didn't have customer stories and partner stories. So with that in mind, our next speaker is Andrew Walker. Andrew is the founder of 3 Weeks, a long-time Google partner, and Andrew and his team have been using Google Cloud Platform for the last 5 years. Andrew's company has real-world experience across 200-odd projects, and today he's going to share with us some of those projects and share with some of the stories and engagements that he's done with 2 customers, Monash University and News Corp, and talking about how GCP was used to make those projects run faster and deliver faster. So without further ado, please welcome Andrew Walker.
Don't want to trip. Hi everyone, and welcome to the summit. For most of you who haven't been to any of the summits in the US, this will be your first summit. So I'm sure you had the same light bulb moments that I had when I first went to one of these summits, to understand just the scale at which Google operates, as per Matt's conversation here. One thing I would say before I get into my talk is that one of the wonderful things about using all of the serverless infrastructure from Google is you get all of that for free. Okay, all of their services that are stoked up for you when we're building web apps, when we're building backends for mobile apps, when we're building big data solutions, and when we're building machine learning solutions into the stuff that we build, all of that stuff's taken care of for you. Great, so look, carrying on learning today. Do we want to change the mic, or are we good? Is that better? Cool. So look, one of the best ways of learning is to have people who've been on the journey ahead of you come and talk about their stories. Monash University and News Corp have been on Google's platform for 2 and 5 years respectively. So they've been where you are. They've started using Google Cloud Platform. So what we're going to do is get them up one by one and just explore with a Q&A session with me up front some of the experiences that they've had. Obviously, having run 200 projects ourselves, we have an opinion as well, but we don't really have time to get into that here. So I'd do what Brendan suggested. Hit us up in the stands if you want to understand our background. Our background is building big, transformative applications both on Amazon and Google, so we have that insight. We have a unique methodology where our book goes on sale today. I'm told I am allowed to plug the book, so which is called Beyond Agile, and that's what we do with our clients. We go well beyond Agile principles, and we do gradual implementations rather than just gradual build. If you're also interested in seeing some of the APIs that you've been hearing so much about today, like the Vision API, in practice, we've built a demonstrator with some robots. We've built a demonstrator with some robots that hit those APIs that you can play with. We've also built an app that looks at some of the Vision APIs and machine learning. So please join us at the stand for those things. So that's us. I'd like to welcome on stage our first guest, who is Liz Dillon from News Corp. Come on up, Liz. Welcome.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sorry, I'll talk from over here. Liz is the operations manager at a business unit in News Corp called Xtend, which is a high-growth business, very chaotic, so I very much appreciate the fact you've come out of your busy day job to talk to us. I guess to get the ball rolling, could you tell us a little bit about Xtend and what it is and some of the challenges that you've been facing over the last year?
Yeah, absolutely. So Xtend offers digital marketing solutions which cover social, search, and display for the most part to small to medium enterprises. We have larger customers as well, but the bulk of our client base is small to medium enterprises. We're a business unit within News Corp, as Andrew said. We're one of the fastest growing, and we're on track to double our revenue this year. We've gone from nothing to, full pelt in 3 years, so it's been a pretty fast growth period for us. Cool.
And what are some of the challenges that you're facing within that growth? So if you carry on growing at the rate you're going, are you going to face any challenges?
So operationally, there are a number of challenges. I think the first one is because we have grown so fast and so organically, we have a lot of manual and non-standardized processes within the business. So setting up a marketing campaign is very task and process orientated, but there are lots of different ways to do it, and we're quite non-standardized. we have quite complex fulfillment, again, partly due to just the pace of growth. And that means find it hard to scale up the business without adding people. And then probably the other one for us, and this is a big one, is that onboarding customers can take 4 to 5 weeks. Again, because of the complexity, because of the non-standardized processes, and because there's a lot of manual back and forth with customers to get approvals around campaign assets and things like that.
Cool. So I remember hearing you say once that in order to double your business, if we don't do something about it, then I guess you have to effectively double the size of your cost base, which is a little bit...
Every time we put on revenue, we have to put on people.
Yeah,
so it's hard to become more profitable over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a few months ago, you looked at a program of work to try and fix that, as we all do, trying to drive efficiency into the business. I think the project's called X2. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what it's aiming to do? Yeah,
so we called it X2 because we actually want to make that onboarding process for customers twice as fast. And the project so far has really been focused on that manual communication piece with the clients, trying to find ways to make that more trackable, more efficient, and really speed up the process around campaign setup and approvals from a client perspective. We kind of identified 3 main bottlenecks with the help of the 3 Weeks team. The first one was around the client actually being able to share their assets with us. So they might want to share logos or style guides, other advertising that they've done, and then we can use that as a basis for their creative, for their digital campaign. So a way to really enable them to share that with us really easily and for us to share that within the business really easily. The second part was around the approvals, as I've mentioned. So once the creative's ready, we go out to the client, we ask them to approve it, or there might be a revision, a number of revisions. We really didn't have a great way to track that process. It was all being done out of email accounts, unfortunately. And then technical setup tasks. So as part of a digital marketing campaign, there are things that the client has to do on their website. So they might need to place call tracking codes. They might need to give us access to Google Tag Manager. So really liaising with them to make sure that their web dev is doing the things that they need to do to get that campaign up and running.
Okay, great. And I think there was even some cases where some of the people in your team have developed some coding skills to try and build...
Yeah, sort of.
We see a lot. So you've kicked off the X2 project a number of weeks ago. Talk us through the timelines. I guess there was a first phase. Let's talk about that.
So the first phase was the phase that I've kind of given you that detail around. It was split into core capabilities and enhancements, and the team was able to deliver the core capabilities in 5 days, which was fantastic. Even on the first day, they actually delivered to us the ability to create and view a proof within the new environment. And a proof is like a set of ads that a client needs to approve. So that was day 1, and by day 5, the core caps were all delivered.
Wow, okay.
Pretty good progress.
Not for me, but wow.
Yeah, definitely.
So just for, I'm imagining the questions that are coming up in the audience. So one of the questions is, when you first went live with some stuff, was it everything, or did you go live with some subset of...
No, it was very iterative. So it was get stuff working for us and then get it in front of the customer as quickly as possible. And that was a very different way of working for us. So it was dependent a little bit on the campaigns that were coming through, but we were able to get the approvals in front of the client by day 3. And the feedback we had was that it only took then 15 minutes to review and approve their creative. Compared to, I don't know if I could even estimate how long that would take with our normal process, but lots of back and forth via email versus 15 minutes, that's a big win for us. And then the ability to upload assets was delivered on day 5, and we tested that a couple of days later with a client as well, and they were really happy with that. So I think in total the whole thing took 15 days.
15 days. So if I can just summarize that, day 1 was a kickoff. I think you don't count that as day 1. So day 0, I'll call it.
Day 0, yeah.
Was the kickoff on Monday.
Yep.
By Tuesday, you had some functioning systems.
Yep.
By Thursday morning.
3, it was with the client, yeah.
Yeah. So by Thursday morning, you had your first proof out to a client.
Yep.
And that was approved and responded back to you within 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So then the following week, built some more stuff around the Google Tag Manager, I think you call it, the customer setup.
Yeah, so the upload of the assets and then the technical tasks as well, yeah.
So basically it sounds like you were live mostly by sort of the Wednesday of week 2, and then you started building on that and making it better for, I guess, operationally, for efficiency?
Yeah, so the team released all of the functionality, iteratively over a period of days, and then we gathered feedback from internal users and also from those external customers and fed that back into the process, so that enhancements and changes were being done on the fly. It was really user-driven, which was very different for us.
Cool. So another question I can imagine people having in the audience is, I haven't heard anything about requirements, I haven't heard anything about infrastructure, I haven't heard a whole bunch of things that would normally happen before that.
Yeah.
I think you're saying that there was none of that happened before you started. It wasn't like there was a mythical phase beforehand that you
No. So day zero really was
genuine
day
startup.
zero. Yeah.
So what happened to requirements? Why didn't you write down requirements?
Well, it just wasn't necessary with this process. So we had a very sort of broad idea of what we thought we wanted to focus on to get the efficiencies, and then we did that kickoff meeting on day zero, as we're calling it. And then the team just said to us, we're just going to start coding. Well, we know what you want. It's quicker to code than to go through all of that requirements gathering. And our business changes so fast as well. We have found previously that if we've had to go through a really long requirements gathering process, that by the time we get to actually building something, the process has changed again, or the business has changed again. So that iterative way of just delivering on a daily basis was brilliant.
Great. That's a good phrase. I like it. It's cheaper to write code than write requirements, which I think any developer in the audience would know already, but it's nice to take away the things that we normally depend on.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So tell us, walk us through other things that were different about this experience for you.
I think in terms of the key takeaways, for me, there was an immediacy about the experience which was refreshing and very gratifying. As we mentioned, the guys just coded. They just got on with it, and then they released functionality to us, and we tested it internally and externally. Again, the user-driven piece was great for us. As a manager, it's hard to take a step back and let your users drive it, and I had to stop myself on a few occasions. But it's great to have your users drive it rather than it be driven by what you think the business needs, because they're the people who have to live it and breathe it every single day. And then for me, I think it was just really important to be open-minded, to embrace a new way of working, see how that could work for our business. Mm-hmm. And I think we've discussed it. Like, I don't need to understand Google Cloud to see that using that was made a huge difference to this project for us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers. Next up, we have Trevor Woods, CIO from Monash University. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Something I didn't mention that is worth mentioning is that in terms of learning from other people's experience, between these two organizations, there's 50 separate projects over the last 5 years, which is I think it's a trail in the serverless world, as I think. It's a trail that's wider and deeper than anyone else that I've heard of in Australia. So definitely people worth reaching out to. So Trevor, it's great to have a CIO on stage. You've seen that project multiplied by roughly 40 at Monash University over a very short 2-year period. Give us an introduction, tell us a little bit about Monash University and I guess some of the challenges that you face as the CIO.
Sure. Well, this morning we've been hearing obviously about scale and Google can scale. And for us, we're Australia's largest university, recently named most innovative. We're in 6 countries around the world. We're less than 60 years old and have gone through that phenomenal growth during that period. And so for us, we're a university on a mission. A few years ago, we were in the top 300 to 400 globally. Now we're in the top 160 to 70, depending on the measure. So what's important about that is, I think, how young we are, how big we've grown in that time, and how much of a top quality university globally. And so coming into the role a couple of years ago, realizing that we had big, bold ambitions as a university that we wanted to build on previous successes, but really we didn't have the ability to execute quickly. We'd gone through a consolidation process of bringing various IT groups, fragmented IT groups from around the university and faculties and divisions together. And so we inherited a lot of disparate systems, a lot of different systems, and our ability to work through those and deal with security issues and build new functionality was really lacking. We were just trying to deal with the problems of the past. So we've along the way, really realized we've had to change the culture, execute much faster, and really get to what is the core outcome that we're looking for and the fastest way to get there. And there's many things that we've done to try and make that happen, but a couple of years ago, searching for people or companies that could build stuff in days or weeks for us was one of those things that we did. And that's where Google Cloud Platform came into the picture for us.
Great. So that's 2 years ago now. I think you were very early adopters of G Suite as well before that, is that right?
That's right. I think 2011, the university before my time migrated all of the students and staff to G Suite, Gmail, and so on. And we just had a great time not having to worry about email being up and all the other various things that happen. I think we have about 150,000 accounts in Google. Yeah.
Cool. So we're 40 projects later. The experience that Liz has had, you guys have had a number of times over, I guess. Can you tell us about one of the projects that you've currently got running?
Yeah, maybe I'll bookend the very first project and then the most recent we went live with. There wasn't a lot of confidence in the business areas of the university that we could execute something quickly. And you talk about requirements gathering, and we would go through lengthy months and years process with a lot of overhead with project managers and so on to get things done. And so I sat down with one of the developers that knew how to do things in Google Cloud Platform and said, could we just give something a go and see, and we'll just, if it doesn't work, fine, we won't tell anybody. And so I went around the university with the business leads and said, do you have something that you'd really want done, but if it didn't happen, it wouldn't matter because you had low expectations anyway. And we found something. And so the developer showed up on a Wednesday and sat down with a director of the area, decision maker, and said, what's the problem? How should we do this? And by that Friday, we had a fully functioning alpha with all sorts of things like text messaging integration and other things in Google Cloud Platform. It surprised everybody. I didn't believe it when I'd heard it. And then the following week, we had a fully functioning beta that was ready for people to use. And it really caught us off guard because all of a sudden we had a solution perfectly running, perfectly scalable. We could have had 100 million people hit it, and it wouldn't have fallen over. And it was just a major contrast to what we had experienced. Fast forward through 40 projects to now, we've just gone live with what we call our agent portal. So the university gets 40,000 paper applications a year from international students. It's labor intensive, lots of errors, people from all around the world. And I think in about 15 days, we had built an online solution for that agents could use to apply for students from anywhere in the world in Google Cloud Platform. Now, we didn't go live with that right away because it kind of got built too quickly. We weren't ready to go live until sort of July and August. And so we just kept iterating it and building on it. And I think one of the really great things about that project is people went out and talked to the users. And so they talked to agents who may have worked with other universities, other software, and we heard, what do you like, what don't you like? If you could dream up the perfect system for you, what would it be? And using Google Cloud Platform, we were able to deliver that really quickly and not have to worry about any of the traditional databases, infrastructure, servers, load balancing. It was just all out of the box, just build the solution.
Thanks. So it's interesting you talk about the distinction between live and not live, and that's something that caught us a little bit off guard in the early days because there's a tendency for us when we go live with everyone at once to be wanting to be hyper careful, of course, which you would. You know, if you're going live with 1,000 agents, for example, then you want to make sure that the thing's working. So, 15 days after the beginning of the project, it wasn't live, but it was being used by 2 agents for real, right? So you get this blurred line between what is live and what is, productionized. I think we started using the word productionization quite a lot in those early days. So as I understand it, I think currently you've got hundreds of agents on board, and I think the target is November for a full launch to have everyone on board.
That's right. It's being used now. We've got, I think, thousands of applications in, and I think we've actually declared we're not accepting paper applications anymore either. So the speed at doing this, if we traditionally would have done that project, it would have been a multi-year effort. We would have figured out the problem. We would have done some preliminary business case work, tried to get the funding for it, made sure it was scalable, and then, you're right, made sure that it actually works. We might actually choose a pilot group for a year And if that went well with the pilot group, the next year we would ramp up. And so what we've done now is literally go live and ramp up within a period of weeks. And I think we're probably being overly cautious, not so much about the technology we have concerns. It's more about have we missed something on the business side that we don't want to get caught out on. But it's going great.
Great. So there are a couple of examples of the projects you've run. Have you had any feedback from the business people, sort of the sponsors of those programs, on any of the projects that you can share with us?
Yeah, I just might say in general, we're looking at a massive transformation effort across the university, really trying to transform administration, deliver new solutions that we need as our business is growing and changing, but also deliver solutions that, quite frankly, we should have had years ago and we just never got to. And so it's a massive effort of trying to get people connected. And one of the biggest things that this has helped us do is restore confidence, or even just create confidence and trust that a solution can be provided, it's the right solution, and it's really quick. Now, sometimes we get it wrong, but the nice thing is you discover within a few days or weeks that, wait a second, we completely missed the boat on this, and we haven't invested a lot of time, we haven't, more importantly, invested a lot of money to get it right. But so customer confidence, if you will, or internal customer confidence is probably the biggest thing that is achieved. And we have people going around the university saying, you know, I think the IT department now can deliver something. I've seen them do some pretty incredible stuff in a very short period of time. But I think I mentioned transformation. We're trying to transform administration and get new modern solutions in place. It puts a lot of pressure on how you traditionally do business, and it really puts a lot of pressure on how you function as an IT department. And this, combined with many other initiatives, have been moving us to try and think differently. And it would be a lie to say we've arrived. We've introduced some of those new ways of thinking. We have a lot of tensions right now because, as you said, as soon as we build the alpha, we're live. We're essentially in production. So how does that change your ITIL and change management processes? It's blowing our minds because do we have a meeting and just declare it's in production? Because it kind of already was. Nobody had to do anything. So it's really putting a lot of pressures on how we work. And I think we have to do that. Every organization realizes, every IT department realizes the world is really changing. It's really changing quickly. And we're going to have to adjust how we do our work, and we're going to have to adjust the tools that we use to be able to keep pace.
Cool. From an outsider looking in, one of the things that impressed me most about, there's been a couple of things that I think you've done that are very, very different to what other organizations in the market are doing. One of those things was the establishment of an API team almost immediately. Can you walk us through the sort of technology you used for that and how that came about?
Yeah, I don't know if I know enough to comment on that. But sort of the realization that we don't want to build hundreds of connections between systems directly, that we actually need in more of a platform and a robust way to do it. And I mentioned earlier that we literally had thousands of systems that were developed by individuals or small teams across hundreds of IT people. And they're actually critical to the business because you sort of realize, well, payroll's got to run, your HR system's got to run, but we don't so much care about the music department where they have an online booking system for students that before they get admitted to a rehearsal. But that's actually business critical. And so we need to pay attention to those sorts of things. And how do you get all of these systems working together? So an API platform there, absolutely critical. But again, that sort of example, we could try and do requirements gathering, go out to market, look for somebody to offer a solution when in fact we just need to sit down with the business area and the problem and potentially just build it in Google Cloud Platform. Yeah.
I think one of the models that I saw work so well at Monash that we've actually been suggesting to our other clients is that the original API team was actually splintered. So there was the original API team that worked the old way, and we grabbed 3 resources to work in a more agile way. I'll call it agile, even though it's not really our process, so that they could actually work with the same people that we were sitting with, the users, look at the pieces of information that we were building into the forms, and build those on the fly. I think the very first one that they built for us was done in less than 4 weeks, which for us is unheard of. One of the big dependencies for building things quickly is you have to integrate them into back-end systems. So I guess another question that you guys would have is, when you're moving this fast, how do you integrate? I guess it's worth pointing out that at Monash, we would go live with small groups of users, which meant that we didn't put as much pressure, business pressure on back-end manual processes. So you can go live with a small group of people, say 10 or 20 out of the full user base, which doesn't require you to have an actual API. You can actually do that using some what we call human APIs. And one of the things that worked really, really well at Monash is the fact that they could then walk the fast or the agile integration team could then fall in behind those processes and produce API points. So for the agent portal, as an example, the first release that we had was putting information through to the people who are currently rekeying paper. And it was still being rekeyed, but it was copy and paste rekey for about 3 or 4 weeks. It still sped the process up for the 2 agents that were on board and were live. But as soon as the API was live and they started rolling out to 20, 30, 40, 50 agents, all of a sudden the paper trail fell away.
Yeah, there's a quote I love, I think it comes from Jim Collins. It says, "Don't let perfect become the enemy of good enough." And it doesn't mean that you should be reckless and do things poorly, but sometimes we're trying to make things more robust, more perfect, dot all the I's, cross the T's, when we don't actually need to. And there's an example of, if you step back and look at the big picture, we don't need the perfect system with the perfect integration. We might want to end up there, but let's do some things that get us started, that builds confidence with the business areas, that gets our people building the systems excited, that they can actually see the results and that people are using them, and then turn it more into a business as usual, that we're always working on our systems, we're always trying to make them better, rather than behind closed doors produce something, go live and forget about it.
Yeah, I think that recurring theme of gradual implementation is one that does stress a normal change management approach, or it does stress the people. Ironically, it doesn't necessarily stress the user base. If you're rolling out gradually to one user base, then to a broader user base, and then to a slightly broader user base, the risk is lower. And the traditional change management, which is trying to avoid the risk of everyone doing it at once, becomes less important. You end up at the same destination, you just get there in a slightly different way. So there's, let's call it 60 environments you have. I think you've got 20 dev, test, and prod environments. I know we talked in the early days about legacy, about support. Run us through how that's different for you for the serverless stuff than it is for the more traditional builds.
Yeah, again, it's sort of mind-blowing and different. And the people that are actually doing the work have to wrap their heads around it, but others that are doing the more traditional work have even a harder time because they're not necessarily part of that process. The cost reduction is huge. Maybe that's not what you're asking me, but when you think about having to, all the time you put into your requirements gathering, all the time you put into buying systems, installing them in your data center, having multiple environments, and then the cost also to the business where they don't have the solution. Mm-hmm. It's huge. I think, mentioned 60 environments. I think our bill with Google is about $3,000 a month for all of those. So that is a very small fraction of what it would cost us in any other environment.
Yeah, interesting. And how many infrastructure people do you have looking after that environment?
None.
'Cause I guess that's a hidden cost normally.
Yeah. So this is none. No infrastructure people. Yeah. On these projects, we still have infrastructure people for lots of other things. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So this is the wonderful thing about living in a world where you're building new things. But I guess what we've learned from working with organizations like Monash and News is that if you are building something new and you're not using a serverless environment, then you're sort of filling up a briefcase with money and throwing it out the window, right? Yeah. Not just in terms of the cost of engineering those platforms and, as you say, the extra time it takes to go live with those environments, but also in terms of the humans that are looking after and you can have infrastructure in the cloud, on any cloud. You're looking after that infrastructure yourself. You've got all the problems that Matt was talking about. It's wonderful living in a serverless world and being able to focus on solutions that solve problems around all those platforms, like Salesforce we integrate into, like the student admin system that we integrate into.
Well, people for years have said things like cloud first, and we thought about cloud first a couple of years ago, and we realized every time we said that, somebody found a reason why it couldn't go to the cloud. So we just said cloud only. and said nothing was allowed to be put on premise. And what that allowed us to do, like you say, is with new things, build it in Google Cloud Platform. And for a lot of the old legacy things, like our HR system and finance system and so on, moving those to a different kind of cloud environment. So what it actually means is we've got a wide variety of talent and skill sets and people inside our area, and all of them are doing something transformational in their own way. So we're not just focusing on the new, ignoring the old. I think it took us 4 months, as an example, for our infrastructure people to shut down our on-site data center, something that we were told would take 3 to 5 years. But again, don't let perfect become the enemy of good enough. Let's pull the plug on this device and see who complains. Let's move this into some other cloud provider. And some of these other things, let's just shut off and build replacement very quickly in Google Cloud Platform. So this is part of a much broader strategy, much broader transformation. And I think that's important culturally inside a large group, is that you don't want to alienate any area. You want everybody thinking about the future innovatively and being able to do what they can to make their current environment better.
Great. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks very much.
So folks, I might just wrap up by saying that, in 5 years, I think 200 projects was the number that Brendan used across both Amazon and Google. We see a massive shift already in our clients. We see less and less Amazon. We see less and less managing my own infrastructure. It's not really an Amazon Google thing. I think out of the last 30 projects that we've run, we haven't seen a single customer wanting to move that new software build around their existing infrastructure. They've all been going for serverless. And what I would say to you is, if you're looking into the serverless world, our opinion is that Google's cloud is there and Amazon's serverless world is here. They have serverless. It's just not as impressive from our perspective, from an engineering perspective. We have to do more work. The projects cost more. We typically spend 4 times our budget over a 5-year period, twice as much to build and twice as much to operate than we would on Google Cloud Platform. So that's my plug for Google Cloud Platform. Please get involved, give it a go. It's so easy to do. Thank you very much.
Andrew, thank you so much, and of course, special thanks to Liz and Trevor for sharing their customer stories.